The Ho-Ho Wizard. One day, when Molly and Peter went to see Chinky, they found him reading a letter and looking very miserable. Molly went over to him.
What's the matter, Chinky?
Then Chinky told them his problem.
I've just had a letter from my cousin Gobo. It says that my village is very unhappy because a wizard has come to live there called Ho-Ho. He is a horrid man and walks about saying ho-ho all the time, catching the little pixies to help him in his magic and putting all kinds of spells on anyone that goes against him. I feel very unhappy.
Oh, Chinky, we're ever so sorry. Can we help in any way?
Asked Molly. But Chinky looked even more sad.
I don't think so, but I would very much like to go off in the wishing chair to my village the next time it grows wings, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Exclaimed Molly. And then she pointed to the magic chair.
Look! Oh, look, it has grown wings now. How lovely. It must have heard what we said.
We'll all go,
said Peter, excited to think that another adventure had begun. He and Molly went to the chair and sat firmly down in it. Chinky squeezed in between them.
You are such nice children.
The chair creaked, and before it could fly off, the pixie cried out loudly,
Go to the village of Apple Pie.
It flew slowly out of the door, flapping its rose-red wings. The children were really excited now. The village of Apple Pie. How magic it sounded. It didn't take them very long to get there. The chair put them down in the middle of the village street and was at once surrounded by an excited crowd of pixies who shook hands with Chinky and asked him 100 questions. He talked at the top of his voice, explained who the children were and why he'd come. Then he turned pale. The Ho-Ho Wizard was coming down the street. He was a little fellow with a long flowing cloak that swirled out as he walked and showed its bright golden lining. On his head he wore a round tight cap set with silver bells that tinkled loudly. He wore 3 pairs of glasses on his long nose and a beard that hung in 3 pieces down to his waist. He really was a strange-looking fellow.
Ho-ho!
He said as he came near the pixies.
What have we here? Visitors? And bless us all, this is a wishing chair, as sure as dogs have tails. Ho-ho, ho-ho, so you have a magic chair. Pray, come and have a cup of cocoa with me this morning, and I will buy your chair from you.
but we don't want to sell it.
Began Peter at once. The wizard turned round on him, and from his eyes there came what looked like real sparks. He was very angry.
How dare you refuse me anything? I will turn you into a...
We will come in half an hour.
Stammered Chinky, pushing Peter behind him.
This boy did not understand how important you are, Sir Wizard.
Brrr!
Growled the wizard and stalked off, his cloak flying out behind him.
Now what are we to do?
Asked Peter in dismay.
Can't we get into the chair and fly off, Chinky?
All the pixies cried out at once.
No!
If you do, Ho-Ho will punish the whole village, and that would be terrible. Stay here and help us.
Come to my cousin Gobo's cottage and let us think.
Said Chinky. So the 2 children went with him and Gobo, who was really very like Chinky, to a little crooked cottage at the end of the village. It was beautifully clean and neat, and the children sat down to eat coconut cakes and drink lemonade. Everyone was rather quiet. Then Peter's eyes began to twinkle, and he leaned over to Gobo.
I say, Gobo, have you by any chance got a spell to put people to sleep?
He asked.
Of course.
Replied Gobo, puzzled.
Why?
Peter smiled.
Well, I have a fine plan. What about putting old Ho-Ho to sleep?
What's the use of that?
Said Chinky and Gobo.
Well, when he's asleep, we'll pop him into the magic chair, take him off somewhere and leave him, and then go back home ourselves.
Said Peter.
That would get rid of him for you, wouldn't it?
Chinky jumped up from his seat in excitement.
My goodness, that's an idea, Gobo. If only we could do it. Listen, where's the sleepy spell?
Here?
Said Gobo, opening a drawer and taking out a tiny yellow thing like a mustard seed.
Well, Peter has a bag of chocolates and he could put the sleepy spell into one of them and give it to Ho-Ho. Peter must carry it very carefully. Ho-Ho is sure to ask what it is, and if Peter says it is a very special chocolate or something like that, the old wizard is sure to be greedy enough to take it from him and eat it. Then he will fall asleep and we'll take him off to the chair to the old Dame Tap-Tap, who will be so pleased to have him. He once tried to change her into a ladybird, so I don't think she will let him go in a hurry.
They chose a chocolate with a violet on top because it looked so delicious. Peter made a little hole in it and popped in the sleepy spell. Then he left the rest of the chocolates with Gobo, put the violet one into the bag, and went off to get the wishing chair with the others. It was still standing in the marketplace, its red wings hanging down, for it was tired. Chinky and Peter thought they might as well carry it to Ho-Ho's cottage, which was only in the next street, so off they went, taking it on their shoulders. Ho-Ho was waiting for them, his wily face watching from a window. He opened the door, and they all went in with the chair. He spoke to them.
I see you brought me the chair. Very sensible of you. Now, sit down and have a cup of cocoa.
He poured out some very thin cocoa made without any milk and looked at them all sharply. He saw at once that Peter was holding something very carefully in his hand, which he did not even put down when he was drinking his cocoa. He went over to Peter.
What have you got in your hand?
Something I want to keep.
Replied Peter at once.
Show me. Show me.
No.
Said Peter. The wizard was really angry now.
Show me. Show me.
Peter pretended to be frightened and at once put the paper bag on the table. The wizard took it and opened it. He took out the chocolate.
Ho, ho. The finest chocolate I ever saw.
He said, and licked it to see what it tasted like.
Don't eat it! Oh, don't eat it!
Cried Peter at once, pretending to be most upset.
It's mine!
Well, now it's mine.
Said the wizard, and he popped it into his mouth and chewed it up. And no sooner had he swallowed it than his head began to nod. His eyes closed, and he snored like 20 pigs grunting.
The spell has worked! The spell has worked!
Cried Peter, jumping about in excitement, but Chinky stopped him.
Peter, this is no time to jump and yell. The spell may stop at any time, and we don't want to wake up the wizard till we've got him to Dame Tap-Tap's. Help me to put him into the chair.
Between them, they dumped the sleeping wizard into the chair. Then Molly sat on one arm, Peter sat on the other, and Chinky sat right on the top of the back.
To Dame Tap-Tap,
he cried. At once the wishing chair flapped its idle wings, flew out of the door and up into the air, cheered by all the pixies in the village. What a thrill that was. In about 5 minutes, the chair flew downwards again to a small cottage set right on the top of a windy hill. It was Dame Tap-Tap's home. The chair flew down to her front door, outside which there was a wooden bench. The three of them pulled the snoring wizard out of the chair and put him on the bench. Then Chinky took hold of the knocker and banged it hard 4 times. He yelled at the top of his voice,
Dame Tap-Tap, here's a present for you.
Then he and the children bundled into the wishing chair again, and off they flew into the air, leaning over to see the delight of the old dame when she opened her door and found the wizard Ho-Ho sleeping outside. Chinky chuckled.
What a shock for him when he wakes up, and thank you very much, children, for your help. You've saved Apple Pie Village from a very nasty man. It will be nice to think of him cleaning Dame Tap-Tap's kitchen and getting water for her from the well. I guess she'll make him work hard. Ho-ho!
Roared the children as the chair flew down to their playroom, and Peter added,
Perhaps the wizard won't say ho-ho quite so much to Dame Tap-Tap.
Chinky grinned.
No, he might get into trouble if he did. Well, here we are home again. See you tomorrow, children.